tell you, I work in insurance approvals and authorizations, so I knew a little
I
bit.
should not feel obligated to tell you my
Hmm.
son's medical history because he's having a
Hmm.
hard time. Join me today for real talk, real moms, real challenges. Whatever you're willing to share, like your
Yeah.
story, kind of why you wanted to share anything and
Hmm.
everything today.
Yeah. So I'm basically like a totally open book when it comes to my two boys. I have two boys that are on the spectrum. And my boys are like the epitome of the phrase when you meet a child on the spectrum, that's it. You've met one child on the spectrum because it's so different and they're
Mhm.
so opposite to each other. Whereas Easton uses an AAC device and, he can talk, but like not everybody can understand him,
Mhm.
not potty trained, very smart. And then you have AJ, who's like talks, potty trained. He can regulate his emotions very well, but like, you can tell when you're seeing it, like there's some sort of delay with him.
Mhm.
So yeah, they're totally opposite. So I just like, I feel like I get both sides of it. And I just want everyone to know about autism so that when we're out at the grocery store and one of them's, having a meltdown and you get the stares, maybe if people understood autism a little bit, they would, not stare as
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
think so. What do you do when you're out in the middle of the store and someone, because I know I understand
Mhm.
those side eye looks because I get them
Yeah.
frequently. Now it
Mhm.
doesn't, I don't really
Yeah,
even
I
think
know.
about
Now
it.
I'm
It
like,
doesn't even
whatever.
bother me. But like as when that first started, what was something, or
Mhm.
even still now, like how do you cope with people
Yeah.
staring?
So I'll never forget this one time we went to a thrift store to get them toys because, like, parent hack, go get them toys at a thrift store because they're not going to
Preach.
care about them in 20 days. Like,
Mhm.
so it was time to leave, and they were both on the ground because, anything with transitions, and,
Mhm.
they really can't get their words out at the time to tell me what they wanted. So they were just on the ground. And I remember I picked both of them up, like plank style, and I'm walking through, and some guy was like, "Oh, there's a special place in heaven for you." And like, while you're trying to be nice, like, I don't need that right now.
Yes. Mhm.
So I just kept walking and I got in the car and I was so upset. I just started crying and I'm like, please, like, stop. Like, I just need to get home.
Mhm.
So now I just kind of like, thanks. But back then, like, I was so embarrassed. I would kind of shut down a little bit as a parent
Mhm.
and just like keep walking.
I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing that I've learned is like we can do like all the social stories, all the routines, all the visual
Hmm.
schedules, and do all the things. And sometimes we're just going to have a hard day. Like when we leave the
Hmm.
house, we have like all the things now in place because we've been doing this for so long with so many of the kiddos. And
Hmm.
still, there's some days we just have like I work in the ER, like the full moon that happens
Oh,
outside is a real life
yeah.
thing.
Oh,
The
yeah.
ER is
Mhm.
100% busier like a couple days before the full moon, but even like at home, I feel like it definitely affects our kiddos too. I always try to think back to like, I always talk about perspective. Like, yes, my kid's having a hard time right now. Or sometimes even when like, so Max has, if you listen to my videos, Max has a very loud vocal stem when he's super happy. So that's
Mhm.
probably him in the background when you hear that in my voiceovers. But sometimes when we go to the store and he's really happy, or at church on Sunday, this past Sunday, he was very happy to be at church, which I'm very excited about. But that's how he told people, oh, it's a super loud vocal stem the whole meeting. And
Yeah.
some people appreciate that more than other people do.
Mhm.
And so one of the things I always try to do is just like shift my perspective to like, first of all, how do I feel about what's going on? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, when he's like vocal stemming in the middle of Walmart, I don't really care. He's
Mhm.
happy. It's hard for him to be here, and I need to get, X, Y. I got to get diapers or pull ups or whatever it is from the
Mhm.
store.
Just
So
get it done. Yeah.
yes. Now in the middle of church, sometimes that's a little bit more difficult for me because I think it's harder for me to just, I'm like, hey, this is a reverent, quiet place. I need everyone to like get it together. Acknowledging that has helped me a lot to be able to figure out where I sit with it. And then once I'm comfortable with like, hey, I just need to get this done at the store. I don't really care what you have
Mhm.
going on. Then
Right.
I don't know, it just puts me in a better perspective to handle the
Mhm.
stares that are
Yeah.
happening around us.
I feel like I used to be like obligated when they would be having their meltdowns to be like, they're autistic, they're autistic, they're autistic. But like,
Mhm.
like, I'm not obligated. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I just wish people maybe understood a little bit. Like, do you think I want to be here right now
Right.
with them melting down? Like,
Hmm.
please just
Picking
like
them up
give
off
me a
the
space.
floor when they're way
Yeah.
bigger than they should be to do that.
Hmm.
I should not feel obligated to tell you my
Hmm.
son's medical history because he's having
Hmm.
a hard time today. I
Yeah.
agree with that 100%. Tell us a little bit about your story. Like, when did you first start to realize that
Hmm.
maybe there was something that required intervention?
So when Easton was probably like, I remember singing to him when he was like 6 or 7 months, and he's sitting in his like little bouncy chair, and he's got like this great stare, and he's laughing, and he's loving my singing. And then like, a month later, when they hit that like 9, 10 month jump,
Mhm.
all of a sudden he wasn't really interacting with me as much. And he always wanted to carry objects in his hand. Like it would be, he had all the toys in the world, but he would want like the empty cheese container or a
Mhm.
spoon or something, and like you had to like pry it out of his hand. And I noticed that he had no interest in toys, that were like age appropriate for him. And he wouldn't respond to his name. And that was the first thing. So I did some Google research, and autism came up, and I was kind of like, maybe. And like autism, there's nobody in my family, my
Right.
husband's family. So, of course, now it's in the back of my mind, right? So, as the time goes on, and then he hits that 12 months where he should hit that 12-month jump. And all of a sudden he's regressing with his tone, like his muscle tone was not as good. He wasn't walking. He used to like, bounce up and down, while holding the couches. He wasn't doing that as much. And then I don't know if you guys have the ages and stages questionnaire. Is that like,
Yes.
yeah. So he
Mhm.
was like failing all of them.
Mhm.
And I reached out to the pediatrician, and she hooked us up with Birth to Three, the early intervention. And they were amazing. They were so good. They would come to the house. And then even, when Easton first started getting early intervention, AJ, my youngest, was like 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And then as time went on, even they were kind of like, you should get an evaluation done for him, So, and then they both got the diagnosis, maybe like 8 months apart. I remember someone really close to me when I said that, I think he's autistic, and Birth to Three agrees, like we should go ahead and test him for autism. This person, they like laughed and rolled their eyes, and they're like, why? These people have a college degree, so you're going to believe everything they said. And I think back to that now, and I'm like, imagine if I let that person win. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, I'm taking it too far. And then I never got the early intervention, or I never got the diagnosis, or I never found out about the integrated preschools at, the public school system. Then, like, where would we be now? Because even from then to now, like, the 5 year difference is night and day for him. So I always say to people, like, don't listen to other people. Like, don't
Mhm.
listen to people that are trying to tell you differently. Because as a mom, like, who knows their baby better than their mom? Is nobody, you
Exactly.
do. So,
Exactly. That's
yeah.
I think back to our story, and mine was actually the opposite. So I remember going, so we were with parents as teachers already, which sounds similar to your program that you were in.
Yeah.
They like
Yeah.
came to the house kind of thing.
Hmm.
And she like pointed me to the next direction. And so we had went to sit for early childhood here now, actually, where I'm currently living again. That was the first school district we intervened with. And Vinny, knew his letters, knew all of his letters, forwards and
Hmm.
backwards, could count to 100, um, made good eye contact, but there was a lot of obviously other things going on. And so they told us when we sat for our autism diagnosis that I think was like 3 months like out from when we had this initial appointment with the school district, that we wouldn't receive a diagnosis. He was far more advanced than, or he would just be fine. He's just very intelligent. Well, then of course we
Hmm.
sat for the diagnosis and got a level 3 diagnosis. So I
Hmm.
think that there is some truth behind that, but then there's also like follow your mom gut. Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
agree with that.
Hmm.
And I think that early intervention is so important, and just people I think question about getting the diagnosis, but what they don't understand is what a diagnosis opens up for everyone. So
Yes.
yes, like there is the stereotype that I think we're actually doing a good job of like breaking barriers. Like think about where we were
Mhm.
10 years ago even.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's come a long way. But when you do get that diagnosis, it opens you up to intervention. And then it
Hmm.
opens you up to, hey, my son or my daughter like needs these things in our home to function, to complete their
Yeah.
ADLs, to sit on
Right,
the
right.
toilet one day, to do all the, I have to do some extra things that maybe my neurotypical mom friends don't do. And
Hmm.
that's okay. But now I have the knowledge to be able to do that. And that all starts with a diagnosis.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think that's a great point.
I always say, like, what a gift I gave him by doing early intervention and giving him that diagnosis. You have all these
That.
months of preparing and waiting, and you're on the wait list for the
Hmm.
evaluation and insurance and co-pays and deductibles and evaluations and all of this. And then you get that diagnosis, and now you're like, okay, like, here we go. And AJ, the school had said to me that they wanted to even retest him for autism because they weren't sure.
Hmm.
But to me, I'm like, what's the hard? Like, if he has the autism diagnosis, like, what's the negative to it? Like, he's
Right.
gonna get so much help.
Hmm.
I see, like, early intervention, like, there's no negative to it. Like, what's the
Right.
worst thing that could have happened? I really don't think there
Absolutely.
is. They got extra help.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
about this time last year, I did a partnership. They do biomarker testing for children with autism from ages 0 to 3. So like it's basically like you swab the inside of their mouth, and
Hmm.
it's like one of the ones for like Alzheimer's. It says
Hmm.
like negative or not negative. So like they don't give you a positive result, but they're like, hey, like the genetic markers are there. So this you still be I would pursue evaluation. And it was interesting. So I tested my baby at the time. She's now 1, and then my now 3-year old. So I sent in testing for both of them, and one of them came back as negative, and one of them came back as not negative. Who was a little curious about, anyways. And it just made me like, even just that, not even sitting for an evaluation because we had done this before, but even just that, like, made me stop. And when he started having like screaming on the floor, I started to think about it differently, and I started to
Yeah.
parent differently because I, instead of just, oh, he's just having a really hard time today, I'd like look at my surroundings and, okay, maybe this is it the light? Is it the sound? Is it
Hmm.
the
The
what?
smells. Yeah.
Right. What
Right,
set
right.
him off? And so I think that that's a great point. Like what gift you did give your children. Because
Hmm.
it just makes us, I feel like, look at them differently, so, because they look at the world differently. So it just allows us to open our views and look at the world a little differently too.
Yeah,
And
yeah. We
really, the
did.
world could use a little bit more of
Yes,
it.
absolutely. We did genetic testing with them too. It was
Yeah.
through Gene DX. I don't know if that's who it was that you did a partnership with, but
I
we
don't
did
think so.
and it was so funny because Easton, who's the one that, like, is very obviously has autism,
Hmm.
and AJ, who is like, are you delayed? Are you picking up habits from your brother? Are you
Right.
autistic? AJ tested positive for that, and then Easton tested negative, which is so funny.
Hmm.
So then there was like a gene discrepancy with AJ. So the doctor called me. He's like, I went to go put it into the database, and AJ is the only one in the database with this gene. Nobody else has it. So I can't tell you what it is because AJ
Wow.
also has kidney disease. So we're like, is this gene the one that just presents like autism, or is it
Right.
one that affects the kidneys? Like, we'll never know until there's somebody else in the database. So it's just a
Right.
waiting game for that.
Wow.
But we were so surprised that Easton was negative, and then the one that's like questionable was positive.
It's
Yeah.
so funny listening to your story because it's very similar to my oldest two. That's almost like
Mhm.
our identical story. One of them got tested, and then I was like, there's some stuff going on here that
Yeah,
looks a little
yeah.
familiar. Let's go
Hmm.
take. So, when you think back to some of the early days, so
Hmm.
like shortly after receiving your diagnosis, what were some of the, let's start with the best moments and then some of the hardest moments?
Some of the best moments, like I said, it was finally like realizing that my mom intuition was right, like,
Yeah.
and now I'm like, here we go, like, this is like the start to the rest of our lives. Like, I have the answer of what it is, and now we need to figure out where to go from here. And I saw this TikTok video, and it came out maybe like 2022, right? But it just, I can like go back and watch it like 20 times a day, and it's from this autism mom influencer. And she basically says everything that you feel, like, you get little to no answers on what to do next. And just know, like, everything's gonna be okay. And you've got this diagnosis. And now you need to worry, like, where to go, who to help. And like, we're all like, autism mom, it's a community,
Mhm.
basically was it. Like, we're a community. Anything you need that I know where, like, what to do, like, I knew what I got and now we need to move forward. And then the worst, I guess, is really like at the same time, your child now has this label, like what is his future going to look like? I have no idea. He's right now, he's like semi-verbal, not potty trained. Is he going to go to high school in diapers? Is he going to all of a sudden one day wake up and be like completely potty trained, talking in sentences, but be a little awkward?
Mhm.
I don't know what is the future going to be like when he's not on, like insure like our insurance anymore? Like what is the adult insurance going to look like when he graduates high school? Where is he going to go? When I watch Love on the Spectrum and I see Tanner, who is like college graduate, living on his own, has roommates, like I would want nothing more than that for my
Right.
child. But is he going to be living with us forever? I don't know. I guess just the unknown it can be kind of scary, especially with
Absolutely.
autism, because it's like there's so much to autism that nobody even knows all of it yet.
I love that line that you said at the very beginning, like, one person on the spectrum, one
Mhm.
person on the spectrum.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
people just don't talk about that. People don't know that,
Hmm.
I feel like, unless you
Hmm.
have one. And then really, if you have multiple, I mean, I
Hmm.
mean, my two boys too are like, have the same diagnosis on paper and are literally night and day. I know you get that. I think that something too that you talked about that super doesn't get talked about enough is that unknown that we have as
Hmm.
parents.
Yeah.
My parents just bought property and we've been looking to build on that or what that looks like. And we're already thinking like, well, if we like built a garage and just lived above it while we built the rest of the house, then when Max gets older, if he needs to, he can just live there.
Hmm.
Like there's stuff that I feel like as special needs parents, we have to think about a little bit more than maybe some of our neurotypical peers, that it's just an added
Absolutely.
layer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had just recently taken out a life insurance policy,
Mhm.
and I had to tell my 12-year-old, who's neurotypical, very, normal 12-year-old girl who loves her brothers so much. I had to tell her, like, I have this policy and you are like the other dependent, the beneficiary on it. If something happens to dad, then this money goes to you, and this money is so you can raise your brothers. And like what a scary thing to tell a 12-year-old, but a thing that like she needs to know about, because you never know what could happen, one day. Like of course I'm not planning on dying.
Right.
but
But we have to think about that. Yeah.
yeah, you never know, and I need her to know like this money is for you to like maybe build like an addition on your house one day for Easton when you have your family or something, which is like, no, like I can promise you my friends with neurotypical kids do not have that conversation with
Right.
their kids.
That's a very real, first of all, kudos to you for having those conversations already, because I
Oh,
think that
thanks.
that just helps her just be able to plant that seed now and just kind of
Hmm.
know. I've I appreciate you talking about that too, because I
Hmm.
have a daughter now. So we have four children, which is still crazy to think about. But we have four, and my youngest is one, and she's definitely neurotypical. I wouldn't
Hmm.
have been able to tell you that the other boys were not at one, but for sure
Hmm.
she is at one.
Yeah.
Because there's so much she's doing that the other kiddos just never did.
Hmm.
And I think about that a lot. I had a really hard time when I was pregnant with her because I was like, if something does happen to me or my husband, like,
Hmm.
am I just like raising a caregiver? Is that what she's gonna be?
Yeah.
And then
Hmm.
had that mom guilt for a minute. And then I think back to my family, and I would 100% do that for my family or my brothers or
Hmm.
my sister. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think that the world is gonna, label it whatever they want to label it, but it's just family, that's what you do, and that's who you're here
Hmm.
for. And not everyone's
Yeah.
family looks the same. And I think that's the
Yeah.
whole point of us sitting down and having this conversation, is to remind other people
Hmm.
that it's okay that not everyone's family looks the
Yeah,
same.
I'm guilt too all the time. I'm like, is she
Mhm.
like the glass child? Like,
Right.
I spend so much time with them at their, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech, driving them here, driving them there. If we leave somewhere, like they obviously get more attention because
Right.
they need it more,
Hmm.
and she can self-regulate, whereas they can't. So yeah, that mom guilt, it really gets you. It
Yeah.
really gets you
Sure
sometimes.
does. Sure
Yeah.
does. Do you have anything, or is there anything that you do to help with the mom guilt?
I try to give her, like, even if it's just blow drying her hair at night. Like the little time with her, I'll put the boys to bed 20 minutes early and then you can like lay in my bed and we'll watch a movie together. Something that she knows, like, I still think of you. I love you. You're my firstborn. You're my baby. You're my everything. I was a single mom for 6 years. So we have this bond that, I won't have because I'm
Right.
not a single mom anymore with the boys.
Hmm.
So she went everywhere with me. She was my little mini me. And then I got married and had the boy. So her life really, it like flipped upside down so
Yeah.
quickly and so young. Ugh, gosh, see, I'm getting the mom guilt now. I feel so
Well,
bad.
so
But
what do you do for you to help with the mom guilt?
for myself, gosh, that's really hard too, because when as moms do we have time to ourselves? Like
Right.
never. I always, I talk to my husband a lot.
Yeah.
He is definitely my rock and like my safe place when I'm feeling down. And he always knows the right things to say to make
Hmm.
me feel better. So definitely confiding in him or, my daughter's grandmother, her father's mom, my daughter's mom or my daughter's father doesn't live near us, but I'm very close with his parents. She goes to their house every weekend, spends, days like amazing. Like I co-parent with them, I say. They're the best.
Hmm.
They're like my parents to me. I talk to her grandmother a lot and she's like, Emily, like I could never do what you do. Like Leah loves you, Easton loves you, AJ loves you. And then she actually went through something where her father ended up moving in with her. So she's like, now she's like, I understand. Like, you go through it with Easton, I go through it with my dad. And she's like, this is hard. She's like, you've
Yeah.
been doing this. Like, wow, I give you so much credit. So definitely, I just like hearing positive things, fishing for compliments a little bit here and there. But I mean,
Right.
it works. It works. Just tell me something positive, and I'm like, all right, let's restart. Let's go. I
Right.
got
We can do
this.
this. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
I think that I think about that too about I'm really glad that you have a rock in your husband because that's I don't
Mhm.
know, that's my biggest thing too. Is like nobody understands this anyone like he understands it. And
Yes,
so
yeah.
that's always what I do too. That's my
Hmm.
how we're doing all the things is our
Hmm.
relationship. So I appreciate that.
It definitely took him after Easton's diagnosis.
Mhm.
Diagnosis. It took him a little bit to accept it.
Yeah.
Like I remember when Birth to Three came back after we got the diagnosis, and they came back to like talk about us. I was like, I thought Alex was gonna cry, and the therapist was like, I did too. Like I thought he was gonna cry. And then suddenly, like I remember like maybe 4 or 5 months into it, I asked him, like, do you think Easton's autistic? And he's like, yeah, duh. Like, and I was like, finally, like that was like such a weight off my shoulders that I was like,
Mhm.
I finally have like we can come together now and do this. And I remember one of Easton's parents said to me, she was like, you two are the most amazing parents ever. And I was like we got it. Like, and I know the divorce rate for autistic parents is like
Yes.
80%. Like it's
Hmm.
high. It's
Yeah.
high. But I always feel like we always say like we can come together for our kids
Yeah.
forever, the rest of their lives.
A lot of my like neurotypical friends, they like take these like yearly vacations and like they're like, oh, this is just for us, like, and we leave
Hmm.
the kids with a grandparent or something.
Yeah.
And don't get me like I have very, very involved parents. My parents are there anytime I call and I need
Hmm.
something, like they come running. They get it. They've like my watch one at one point, me and my husband were both working night shift. So they
Hmm.
on the weekends would like occasionally watch the kids overnight. So
Hmm.
they're very involved, but I still cannot take a week-long vacation without my
Hmm.
children,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
lot of them can.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. Like, how do we, continue to keep a strong bond? Because the divorce for
Hmm.
parents of children on the spectrum or children with special needs is so high. And I think a lot to like those little moments in the car, like grabbing
Yeah.
each other's hands while we're going to
Hmm.
therapy or sitting down and having just a few minute conversation. And I think that that is important to find that with your spouse, whatever,
Yeah.
everyone's is going to look a little bit different, whatever that looks like for you.
Recently went away overnight in November for the Marine Corps ball, and security cameras in our son's room. We kept saying like motion detected, like
Mhm.
3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. My son, like Easton, he was just not having it, not having us there. And so my mother-in-law stayed with him, and we felt bad, like she
Yeah.
didn't get sleep. They share a
Right.
room. AJ didn't get sleep. Easton was
Hmm.
struggling. Leo was like, they're being so loud. And then in the morning, Leah and AJ are up because, they finally went to sleep. Easton's sleeping in, and then they're loud, and then Easton wakes up, and then it's like a revolving circle. And I was like, we just can't go away. Like, we can't do it. Like, was a
Yes.
nice try. Thanks
Hmm.
to my mother-in-law for staying with it, but we can't
Right.
do it.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
how exactly how because we like sleep really good now. We found a really good routine, really good sleep
Hmm.
schedule. But when they go anywhere that's not here, it is not
Oh
that
yeah.
at
So
all.
Easton and AJ both have a cubby bed. Thank goodness. I will tell you,
Mhm.
I had to fight with Easton, they approved it right away. They brought somebody from the insurance company out to the house, and I think that they saw him and were like, yeah, we're approving it. With
Yep.
AJ, I had to fight for like a year. It was so
Mhm.
hard. And there was like an autism mom's Facebook page, and somebody said, like, post a picture that shows you're an autism mom without saying anything. And so I posted a picture of their room with two cubby beds, and I got at least 20 private messages where people were like, how did you do it? How did you get approved? And I sent them, I had to fight. I had to go in front of the board. I requested the fair hearing trial. I went in front of a board of like three or four different people from the
Oh,
insurance
go
company.
you.
I fought hard. And I have to tell you, I work in insurance approvals and authorizations. So I knew a little bit like of how it works, in the
Mm.
lingo. And I wrote the insurance like this long letter about that. I was like, listen, you can say that it's not helpful, but it is. And my child's not a number. This is a real thing that could happen, with unsafe sleeping. And they finally approved it. I found they were saying it's scientific, like there's no evidence that a safety bed works, which is not true, by the
Right. Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
And I found actually some scientific evidence. Somebody did something with the cubby bed, and the risk of injury went from like greater than 99%. And after the cubby bed, it went down to like less than 0.001%. So with that, scientific proof and with my letter, and I kind of I was like kind of no nonsense when we got to that point, and they finally approved it, and it was awesome. It was
Love
amazing.
that you took the time to find the research. That one time I had a comment about because I'm really big on like sensory regulation. That's when I like saw the biggest night and day difference in him was once we like
Hmm.
figured out his sensory profile and started integrating all the
Yes.
things. And so I really try to help because I know not everyone obviously is going to be Maxwell, not everyone's going to be Vinny, but there's someone out
Hmm.
there that could benefit from it. So I always just try to share
Yeah.
as much as I can. So
Oh
I
yes,
posted a
yes.
video about sensory regulation or sensory processing or something,
Hmm.
which I have a medical background. So like I'm all about like evidence-based practice. Like I don't ever share
Hmm.
anything unless I like have like a sign because I don't do it in
To
my
back it
home
up, yeah. Well, I
unless
mean,
it's like backed
especially
up by
like
research.
off topic a little bit. Some people, like the trolls, can be kind of mean if they're like, if you don't have evidence to back it up, then
Yes.
yeah.
And
So
that's
definitely in your position,
exactly,
yep.
yes, exactly what this was. And they said, you are not allowed to just, I love people just posting claims like this. This is not
Hmm.
scientifically backed. And so I was like, I got you. And so I
Yeah,
looked up all
yeah,
the things. I looked up all the things and just let them have it. So I think
yeah.
that we could do
Hmm.
like a whole video on insurance
Hmm.
authorizations and how to look up a scholarly article because people
Yeah,
need
I
to,
would love to. I also would love to do stuff on like elopement. We had a
yeah.
situation this summer, actually. I work from home, and it was summer, so they weren't in school. And Easton's, bopping around over here next to me. And then he went downstairs, and I'm like, okay, like have fun. We have all
Right.
the locks and the alarms on the door, so I don't even think anything of it. And my daughter actually had a doctor's appointment, so I get out of work and I go downstairs, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get them ready to go, whatever. And we're walking back upstairs, and my daughter looks out the window downstairs, and she's like, Mom, the dogs are outside. And I knew in my heart, how did those dogs get outside? I knew
Mhm.
it. And then his shoes and socks are right there by the door, and my heart sank. I ran outside. I'm like, Easton, Easton. I called my husband. He was at work. I was like, I can't find Easton. And I'm calling him. My neighbors are outside. And I'm like, do you see him? They're like, no, I haven't seen him. I haven't seen anything. And I just remember being like, I have to call 911. I have to do it. Like, this is every mom's biggest fear,
Yeah.
neurotypical or not, losing your child.
Yeah.
is terrifying. And now you're losing your child who has no sensory or no danger awareness, nothing,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And so 911, they get here. It was amazing. Like at first, it was like two officers that showed up, just like town Oxford police. And they're great. They're like, listen, we have to search the house top to bottom. I'm like, you can go in, look anywhere. I got to stay outside. I know he's not in there. I'm not wasting my time to go inside with them when I know he's
Right.
not in there, you know? At this point, a state trooper showed up. So he's outside talking to me, and I hear on it, they're like, no, the house is negative. He's not in the house. And I live on a really long private shared driveway. So I get out to the road, and there are, I kid you not, and now time went by like seconds felt like hours,
That's right.
right?
Yep.
But
Hmm.
there had to have been 20 police officers between the state police. There was and then the like the master sergeant shows up for the troopers, and he's like, I need you to get me his clothes that he wore last. We have a drone on the way. We have a dog canine. We're gonna search the scent. And I like at that point, like it set in, I'm like, this is real. Like he's missing. And I remember my daughter started crying. And of course, I feel awful because I kind of was just like, I don't have time for you to cry, you know,
Yeah.
but I was freaking out.
Yeah.
And, you know, luckily at that point when she said that, dispatch was still on the phone, and they're like, we're gonna find him. It's gonna be okay. And I was like to back it up a little bit, when I first called and I was like, my son is missing. I can't find him anywhere. They're like, okay, like no big deal. How old is he? I'm like, he's 5. They're like, okay, well, where was he last? I was like, he's autistic. Like, I don't know where he was last. And then I
Right.
felt the urgency pick up in the
Yep.
call, you know, right away. And so he was found about maybe like a mile and a half away in the woods. A neighbor found him 2 hours later, just holding a turkey feather and
Yep.
just standing there. He probably had the time of his life.
Yep.
Um, and it was the scariest moment. I always say, like, something inside me died that day. I'll never be the same
Yep.
person I was before that happened. And we have locks, we have, you know, like a neon sign that says like right on the door where he knows, you know, you don't go out here, and we have little chimes, everything. But that was the day that he realized, like, I can bypass these really
Mhm.
well. And unfortunately, he's very smart, too smart for, you know, his own good. And you know that happens. We live right near a dam, right near a main road. And I just kept getting all these images in my mind. And I remember like the things running through my mind. The first thing that ran through my mind was like, oh, I'm never going to see my child again. And then it
Yeah.
ran through my mind, I was like, this is my fault because I was upstairs and he was downstairs. And then it ran through my mind, I was like, I can't afford a funeral. And, you know, I was like, I can never go on a vacation again. Like, I'll never be happy again, you know?
Hmm.
Because at that point, I started to kind of lose hope a little bit when the sun started setting. And then they found him, and it was like, the craziest, like happiest moment of my life that was
Right.
found at like the worst moment of my life. And I remember the one of the EMTs being like, hey, listen, like this is the best possible outcome yet. And I was like, no, like the best possible outcome was this never happened.
Right.
I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is horrible.
Right.
My husband, he like rushed home from work, and he was like, you know, I knew it was bad. He's like, when I went over the little hill onto our road and came across the road shut down with flashing lights everywhere, I realized how serious it was. It opened up now the awareness of what more I need to do. And, you know, now my husband and I have this like unspoken rule where somebody has to have eyes on him at least every 5 minutes.
I appreciate you sharing that story because we had a similar situation. I was putting my then newborn into, like, literally turned around, put him
Mhm.
in the stroller,
Oh
turned back
gosh.
around, and he was not in the
Mhm.
backyard. And this was
Ugh.
before. I'll never again live in a house that does not have a, like, private sea gated in
Mhm.
fence. Because I didn't then, and it was the same thing. We found him walking up towards the highway, like a very,
Oh
very
my
busy
gosh.
interstate,
Wow.
walking up towards that way. And, you know, the faster we would walk, he'd just turn around and laugh like it was a big game because he had
Yeah.
no, I mean, he has, and it's better now for sure. But
Mhm.
then had no sense of danger
Yeah.
whatsoever. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
back, I have I've had an experience at work not too long ago where they asked me to come to something outside of work, and I don't do a lot of stuff like that, and I don't think people
Hmm.
really understand why.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, my husband works that day, like I can't." She's like, "Oh, just bring the kids." I'm like,
Oh
"I
yeah,
can't just bring the
okay,
kids by
sure.
myself."
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
seven, I said the words, "My 7-year-old might elope," and she kind of laughed about it, like, "Oh, elope,"
Yeah.
like I was being dramatic, and I'm like,
Yeah, right.
"Oh,
No,
that
like
only has to happen to you
literally.
one time. It actually doesn't need to happen
Mhm.
at all. Like, just the thought of it alone is
Yeah.
enough." And
Right,
that's just
right.
a reminder to me that sometimes that, there's just other things that
Hmm.
not everyone has to worry about.
Right, right. I said, like something inside me died that day. Like I'll never be the same person I was before. Never, ever. That was the worst day of my life. My husband was like, I've been to Iraq in war, and I was more terrified now than I have ever been in
Yeah,
my life.
wholeheartedly second that. And mine was
Yeah,
not
yeah.
near, he was not gone for 2 hours. He was probably, I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know, because exactly what you said. I mean, the seconds felt like
Mhm.
hours.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, he was just walking up our road. So it was when we found him. So it was nothing like your experience.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
I understand that completely because it's
yeah,
a feeling that can't be described to anyone else unless because I had those same
yeah.
exact thoughts you did in like a I
Hmm.
mean, it happens in like seconds. The last question I
Yes.
always like to ask anyone is just if a new mom was getting her diagnosis, let's say she got her diagnosis today, what's one thing that you would like to share with her?
Well, first off, congratulations. Like I said, what a gift. What a gift to give your child that diagnosis, because now you can focus on helping them, advocate for them. It will never, like the advocacy will never stop. Get them into, even if it's like a group at the library, like expose them to other children as much as possible. Seeing them interact with other kids has helped because, even if Easton doesn't want to sit right next to another child or color with another child, if I, do like a hand over hand right next to each other, like that's a huge accomplishment. So just, gosh, the advocacy will never stop. That's what I have to say. It'll
Yeah.
never stop. And it's such a good thing. And you're going to hit bumps in the roads, and you're going to hit such highs. Like I'll never forget his first word when he was 5. It was bubble. And it's just a moment I'll never forget. But always be on your toes with them too.
I think
Gosh.
that that's a great note to end on. I always try to say, it's important for our children to learn about the world. It's
Yes.
equally as important for the world to learn about our children.
Yes,
And so one of our
absolutely.
responsibilities is to try our best to get them out of the house and to
Yeah.
expose them to the world so that
Yeah.
we can, teach everyone about our
Hmm.
kiddos just as much as we have to teach them about everyone
Yeah.
else.
You said in the beginning, like in the early stages of the diagnosis, I did care what people thought when I was out, but now he is who he is. And I'm not going to change him to please the world. I really
Right.
wish the world would kind of change to accept them. So that's another thing. There's, it's going to be hard in the beginning, and don't worry about other people because, your child is the main priority with that. Use the platform of what I know as an
Mhm.
autism mom to help other parents, which I'm sure is why you do it as well. I'm
Yeah,
sure it's why everyone
exactly.
does it. Yeah.
Yep. That's what I don't know everything, but what I do know, I
Yes,
want
I
to
would
share with
love to share.
everyone.
And then what I don't
Mhm.
know, if people do know and they tell me, it's amazing. Like it's
Yep.
so helpful.
Once a month, we're going to start sitting down with other moms that are in a similar situation, just like you. Other moms whose child have received that autism diagnosis and what they've done and how they've coped with it, how they've overcome those stares and those everyday trials and some of the hardest moments that they've had to overcome. Real talk, real moms, real challenges.